My name is Dean Holt. I am the director of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, as well as Old Max in the production. And I am also a company member here at Children's Theater Company, celebrating my 30th season with Children's Theater.
Hi there, I'm Gianna from Family Fun Twin Cities, and this is the Let's Go Do Fun Stuff show. To celebrate the holidays, Children's Theater Company invited us to experience the production of How the Grinch Stole Christmas with company member and actor and director Dean Holt. Last year, Omri met the Grinch, and you can learn about life as the Grinch at the link in the notes. This year, I brought my daughter Brin and her good friend Landon to do the heavy lifting, i.e. interviewing. I know you will enjoy this conversation.
Hi, I'm Brin. I am Gianna Kodatsky's second-born daughter, and I've been in theater for pretty much as long as I can remember, which is like second grade. And yeah, I just came to interview someone that is he helped inspire my theater journey.
Hi, I'm Landon. I am a friend of Brin's and also a very just active theater person. I do a lot of theater.
Both Landon and Brin are extremely humble. When Landon says he does some theater stuff, he means that he played Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast and SpongeBob in SpongeBob the Musical. Let's get started with the Grinch.
So Old Max is our sort of our lens into this show, and the whole show starts with we see a little street light come up, and then there's Whoville in the distance, and Old Max walks out with a lantern. The whole purpose Max is there is he's making his way back to the cave to sort of remember one last time this whole journey that he went on with his life, and so it's a memory play. And so it's cool.
It so much sadder.
Oh, it's
why would you do that?
I know, and it's not about the sadness of it. It's sort of about the joy of like, boy, I was there in that moment of time where this transformation happened, and we saw a community welcome someone in, and we saw a guy finally get some love that he had never had and had never acknowledged as far as his relationship with Max too. So yeah, it's cool, and what I think it does is it allows me as Old Max to sort of curate my way through those memories, and sometimes just give way for the audience to see them, and other times be living them in that moment and feel those feelings and stuff. So it's a very satisfying journey to go on, because I think it speaks to all of us. We're always thinking about, gosh, I remember when I was a kid and I used to do this, and so it allows me to access memories of my own experience. And so everything I try and do is honoring, my buddy Jerry Drake, who played Old Max the very first year we did it. There's things with his performance I try and just borrow and put on myself, because I want to acknowledge those people that have come before. But yeah, there's a gentleness to Max that just sort of is endearing to me. Just that person that gets to hold the audience's hand and say, hey, I have something I want to tell you about. And they feel safe and they feel secure, and yet they get to go on that journey and experience all those things with the Who's. So it's cool.
You mentioned that you're the director of this show. I was wondering how you came into that position.
Yeah, so part of working here has been being part of the acting company, and so with that role, a lot of times in rehearsal I am helpful as far as like taking scenes next door in the other rehearsal space and working with the students, or helping with ideas as far as like, hey, I think to the director, I think this would be a good idea to try this to unlock the scene. So some of the skills that I'm bringing now I've been doing just in my role in the acting company here. But with this show, our former artistic director was leaving the show, and we needed a director for it. So I said, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring. I've been this is my 8th production of Grinch.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, I know the show very well, and I love the show, so if you'd welcome me into doing it, I'd love the opportunity. And he was kind enough to say, yes, that'd be great. So that was my little chance. It's not necessarily that I was seeking out to start directing, but it was like, this seemed like the perfect opportunity to do that. And it's been an incredible gift. And it's also been something for me that's opened some doors like, oh, I actually really like this, and I think I'd like to look into this a little more. So yeah, it's been a happy accident, I say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Being both an actor and director in the show, how do you approach the transition between performing and directing?
Right. So for this show, what's been cool is because I've been a part of so many different productions, I've been a Who in Whoville, I've been young Max, the Grinch's dog, I've been old Max. I also had a stint as the Grinch when I was understudying and that person's father passed away. I was in the show for a week as the Grinch. So I've had all these opportunities to sort of see Whoville from different lenses, which I think is great. And also, I think anytime you have an actor step into the role of director, they bring that sense of what it is to be on stage in those moments and like how it is to connect and what that might feel like. So the dialogue between the actors and myself has been wonderful because they're like, hey, Dean, this moment feels weird. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me get up there and try that. And I do sort of what they're doing, and I feel that. I'm like, yeah, I see how this is a weird moment. It seems like if we would add a counter here of these people crossing behind us, it might help support the choice or the movement. So that's, I think, the benefit of having an actor-director situation, because there's an ease of accessing the language and sort of a shorthand to the rehearsal process because of it. The challenge, of course, is sitting there and not being able to get up and do everything myself. So I was fortunate to have both my wife as my assistant director, who knows me so well and could sort of watch what I was doing and give me input that I knew would be important to me. I also had a wonderful understudy that was able to do stuff that I could watch and be like, oh gosh, I never realized that's what it looked like when I would do this. And I also recorded the rehearsals of myself so that I could step back and look at the video and be like, oh, if I would wait 2 more beats before I make this cross, or do the line right after this thing that the Grinch is doing, the little things like that. So it's sort of been trying a bunch of different ways to make that work. But overall, I think it's been very successful as far as just the feeling in the room.
How do you prepare for a role, and do you have any like sort of specific routines or methods that you go through when you are preparing?
Yeah, each show is a little different, I would say. I think you kind of don't know, even if you have the script ahead of time, until you get in the room, you start talking to the director and sort of what angle they want to take with things. You're like, oh, I was thinking about this, this way, comedic. And they're like, no, we really want to feel the drama of this moment. It's like, oh, okay. So it's, it really depends until you start having those conversations of where you're going to go. But I think for me, I tell the kids, like when we're working on script stuff, I say, okay, let's look at our script and treat this as like a treasure map. And we don't know where the treasure is until the end of the play. And so each page we turn, what have we learned? What did we know from the beginning? What do we know now? What do we not still know? Even though we're going to do How the Grinch Stole Christmas, we know he's going to grow a heart and all that, but we don't know it until this page of the script. So we have to convince ourselves to go on this journey all the way through. So I think treating an approach like that, it allows you to stay in that moment of not getting ahead of the curve and not indicating to the audience what's going to happen. You are living in that present moment. So that's one thing I do to approach things. I'm a very physical performer, so everything I do is through the lens of physicality. Like, I tell the kids in this show, I'm like, we should be able to do this show without any of us saying a line or speaking a lyric of the music. We should be able to just move our bodies through space, and an audience should be able to watch that and understand what's happening, because our bodies are our greatest storytellers. So I lean into that as far as what is my body doing to help my character, to also help further the story, to help the audience understand. And so part of that then is getting ready for the show. I do a lot of stretching, a lot of warm-ups in that regard, just to make sure I feel ready to, do everything I can to help the show happen.
If you could just tell me like how you go about sort of bringing like a creativity and freshness, and like you were saying, those more personal moments for the actors on stage to a well-known story such as The Grinch, and just especially performing for young audiences and how that translates.
So for this one, historically, the Who's in Whoville are sort of a group of people. And it's hard to find those individual moments and people to pop out of that, so it doesn't just feel like, oh, there's the Who's and there's the Grinch and Max. And what I really wanted to do is make those people feel like they each had moments where they shine and pop out and have individual storylines. And so that's really what we did a lot in the rehearsal room regarding, is like, I want your family is in charge of, you bring all the food to Christmas celebrations. So, you come in with a big entrance, we feature that. We have another family that's in charge of decorating the tree. And so just finding those isolated moments like that, which make each family feel like they have a contribution to the scene, but also to the world. And suddenly you're like, we had our composer, Mel Marvin, was here on opening night. And so I worked with him first back in 1994, and we did this the very first time. And he said, Dean, I can't tell you how cool it is to see the community come to life. He said, I haven't seen that community like that in decades. So I was like, awesome. So people see it and they feel it. And I think the ensemble feels it too, where I think some of them that are returning to the show have felt they've been sort of just the ensemble behind the main action. And this time they feel like, my gosh, I feel like I'm really a part of it. And I feel that sense of community, and I see how I fit into that. So for me, that's one of the big wins out of it. So that for me was a big thrust. Also honoring these past productions, and there's been a lot of people who have touched this play over the years, as far as directors, performers, designers, And even our playwright last year passed away. So there's people we've lost over the years. And so for me, I wanted to go back and look at all of our past work, our scripts that we've used over the years that have had trimmings and cuts and edits, music that's been taken out of the show, music that I wanted to put back in, things from the cartoon that I'm like, that is so iconic. I want that moment. So I'm trying to honor all these traditions because the show lives on because of our past, you know what I mean? And taking that into what we're doing now with an idea that, hey, these will be new things for our audience right now, and it's going to carry forward to our future. So past, present, and future is something that has been a thing we've talked about a lot as well.
What would you say is the difficult, or one of the difficult parts from your tech of this show?
And tech is our process where, we have our regular rehearsals in the rehearsal room where we sort of learn our lines and our blocking and all that. And then tech rehearsal is where we jump down to the stage and we add our lighting and our sound and our video elements if we have those. We add our live orchestra and we start rehearsing on the stage with a full set, scenery, props, costumes, the whole works. And that's called our technical rehearsal, where we get all those elements put into the production. And then we open up for our preview audiences, which is our first audiences that come and see the show for a discounted admission price, but it's our learning lab to see like, oh, what is working and what is not working. And then we make our final adjustments to the piece in that time. And then we have opening night, which is the show that we're like, that's the one we're going to be doing now. Tech of this one, boy, tech went pretty darn good. I should knock wood, but tech went pretty smooth this time. Some of the difficult things are always, lighting is always a challenge because a lot of the designers don't really get here till that final week when we get into tech.
Yeah.
So we've had 4 weeks in the rehearsal room to figure stuff out and try things. And the designers get there and all of a sudden they're like, boy, okay, we got to do this. And it just takes time to build the lighting cues and get that just right. And so Nancy, our lighting designer, Nancy Schertler, is incredible. And this time I said, Nancy, I release you. She's done the show several times with us. I said, I release you from feeling like you have to do what we've done in the past. I want you to feel like you have a new access point to this play. And she found that so liberating to just be like, oh, great. So she literally dumped all the cues from the past productions over to the side here and just started fresh. And what was cool in that is it allowed her something that, yes, I know this piece and I've done it before, but it allowed her fresh eyes to be like, I want to see this in a new way.
Yeah.
So again, that takes time in tech, which is sort of what eats up a lot of our moments there. Mm-hmm. But it was cool to see sort of the end result of that new lighting cues that she got. There's a moment on Crumpet when the Grinch's heart grows, and it literally, if you go to the cartoon, there's a moment in the cartoon where those rays of light shine out on the mountain behind him, and we've captured that on stage. And so it's for me, it's like those little wins of like, yes, we got that. So, but the lighting thing is sort of what the biggest challenge was in tech, figuring out some of those new ideas.
What would you say has been your favorite scene to work through and direct?
Boy, I'll say 2 different ones for 2 different reasons. My favorite scene in the whole show is the top of Act 2. We go into the Who family's house, and we catch Grandma and Grandpa and Mom and Dad just finishing up the final touches on Christmas Eve night before Christmas morning. So it's the last presents are put out, and they're looking out the window as a beautiful snowfall, and they sing this song about this moment in time right before Christmas morning. So it's not past, it's not present, it's not future. It's just this weird little magical time when the clocks are chiming and the snow is falling. I love that scene so much. And so we put a lot of our own family traditions and thoughts and memories into that scene, as far as like, oh, my wife's father developed Parkinson's, so getting up and down off of things was difficult for him. So we have a moment where Grandpa's sitting on the couch and can't get up, and so Grandma has to come and help him up. And it's little things like that, which are just little touches, but to me, if you feed those little things that have so much meaning, it transcends into the audience as well. Whether they understand it or not, they feel those connections. So that's one of my favorites. Also, the scene where the Grinch goes out in the audience, and it's sort of like you open a can, you don't know what you're going to get, because each audience is going to be different and react differently. And so Reed being able to sort of improv his way through that, and we had new ideas of like, hey, I want to try this year. We're going to add these additional things out there in the house, new props that the audience has to deal with and be part of stealing Christmas, sing along moments and stuff like that. So that was sort of fun to think about and really not find out until we had our first preview audience. In the rehearsal room, we couldn't practice any of it. So it was like, we'll see what happens. And that's been really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean, for taking the time to talk with us. And thank you, Brin and Landon, for giving up a morning/afternoon to spend time at Children's Theater. Thank you for all of the details that you shared with us, and we are looking forward to part 2, where we get to learn even more about how to put a show on for Children's Theater Company. And now, it's your turn to go do fun stuff.
Okay.
Can you explain to people who don't know theater speak what tech means?
Who do you want to explain that?
Any of you, 'cause you're all like theater people.
That really clears it up.
How about the guy who gets paid?
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, you stole my question. I was going to ask one very similar to this, but yeah.